Welcome to YouTooSpain, almost live. On today's show, we'll be chatting with Chris, the visa and residency expert from Upsticks, all about how to retire to Spain using the S1 for your health cover, whether you're single or a couple, and whether one of you has an EU passport or not. We'll cover some of the common scenarios. And although this is a pre-recorded live show today, you can still live chat to each other, but put any questions to Chris in the comments below on YouTube. There are time codes so you can scroll to your heart's content or just settle back with a cuppa and watch the whole thing. It's a little bit shorter than the usual live shows because we don't have any of you to chat to. You're all very welcome though to YouTooSpain. Let's dance! Right, Chris is waiting to join us, but in the meantime, don't forget to sign up for free to our monthly newsletter on YouTooSpain.com. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. There's loads of information for you on there to help you with your Spanish dream, including blog articles, resources, links, offers from recommended companies and much more. So sign up now to benefit from that. Doesn't cost you a penny. Without further ado, let's meet my wonderful guest for today. It's our best mate, Chris from Upsticks. Hola, matey. How you doing?
Yes, very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm not too bad today. Off the tablet, which is brilliant.
So how I can't remember now. How long do you spend off before the treatment starts again? Is it a week?
Exactly a week, yes. Yes, I'll be at your place in a week, being dragged into the hospital, kicking and screaming, ready to be jabbed in the arm yet again. So, let's get straight on to the topic of the show. We've not got any live guests because we're not strictly speaking live today, so let's do it. We're giving you lovely watchers, all you need to know about using the S1 for your health cover when you retire to Spain. So Chris is now going to remind you in a nutshell, what is the S1? Vámonos!
Excellent. Okay, going on to the S1. Well, the S1 basically is a document that you request in the UK, which allows you to access public healthcare in Spain. Okay, it's available for, in most circumstances, pensioners. They've got a state pension and their beneficiaries or partners or spouses, and in some circumstances we're going to talk about younger children as well.
Brilliant. So the big question that we hear a lot, can the S1 be used as proof of healthcare cover for the non-lucrative visa? It can now. Historically, definitely looking through the videos that we've done in the past, if you remember, there was, for want of a better technical word, a lot of hoo-ha at the beginning of the process because no one knew whether it was actually going to work or not, and some people had to get private healthcare to get them in their first year. We had a couple of cases like that, but it all settled down, and then the consulates realised that the S1 was a valid form of healthcare in Spain, and they started to accept it. That was about 2-3 years ago now, and since then anybody who has access to one can use that to get their non-lucrative visa and continue to use that during their renewal process. That was brilliant. I remember that happening, and we did a show all about it, and the hoo-ha before, because I think I was living in Ireland when it was all a whole mess. You just couldn't tie everything round and get the timing right. You had to be here before you could get the form, and you couldn't be here unless you got the visa in the first place, which you couldn't get without the S1 with healthcare. So what a mess. Yeah. And they used to, if you remember, they used to send them to Spain because they wouldn't send them from the UK. So the UK, as to the whole process post-Brexit, no one really knew what was going to happen. So the UK authorities said, we can only send them to Spain when you're living in Spain, because they have no consideration for the visa process and don't understand the visa process, evidently. And the consulate was like, no, we need you to bring it in before we give you a visa. So we used to have them being posted out to us and then have to post them back out to clients. It was crazy. Yeah, another ridiculous example of bureaucracy. But there you go. Yeah. We get used to things like that, don't we? We do. So let's look next at the S1 for dependents, because if you've got cover, other members of your family could be covered too. So who qualifies for the S1? Yeah, so and this is the great news. If you are, and this happens a lot, we have a lot of circumstances where people are retiring, married couples or couples with civil partnerships, and one of the couple is a state retiree, and they have access to the S1, but the other is younger and doesn't. They can be a beneficiary
of the person who has access to the S1. So basically, when you request your S1, both of you have to get separate certificates. One of them will be in the, should we say, the title holder for the access to the healthcare, and then there's a separate one which will show both the person who has the access and the beneficiary, should we say, that person who can ride off the back, as we normally say, of the S1 or the other.
So my next question, I think you've already answered. Does that apply if the beneficiary is below retirement age? So that is a yes.
It does. It does, which is really good and a great saving on healthcare. You can imagine, I mean, your healthcare policies can range from anything from $2,000 a year upwards, depending on, circumstance. And it's very rare that anybody gets to, retirement age without a little niggle or something. So, this is basically zero healthcare cost, should we say, out of your pocket, because it's being paid for by the state.
Mm-hmm. So that means that minors can be beneficiaries. That's got to be rare, because you've either got to have a big age gap between the couple, maybe a very young wife or a wife that gave birth at more than 45 or even towards 50, or maybe a child with a disability over 21 or something like that, or medically dependent parents.
Yeah, so in theory, yes, but obviously we haven't had any circumstances due to, I think it's very rare that kind of age group falls into any sort of demographic of our clients, really, people who are state retiree age with minors. But there are certain circumstances where family members, especially children who have disabilities, if they're dependent on a beneficiary of an S1, can get one. So we just recently actually do one now. So there are circumstances which fall out of the norm, i.e. a state pensioner and a spouse, in which people can get them as well.
Brilliant. Right, viewers, do you know what? Have you noticed how much information and detail Chris knows from being right there on the front line and speaking to immigration officers and even going to the BLS centres in the UK? If you want him and his Upsticks staff to help you get your visa, S1 residency, and smooth out all of the bureaucracy for you, upsticks.es is where you can find him and book a free phone call. You won't regret it. Make sure you ask for the phone call early, because he's very popular. And have you also noticed the special link below to enjoy a free account and advice from our other sponsors at Smart Currency Exchange, whom I highly recommend for when you're moving, or especially if you're buying a house here. But do use the link below to get in touch with them. That helps YouTooSpain out at no extra cost to you. That's another freebie. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. Okay then, back to the S1. What happens when you register in Spain? So this is part 2 of the process. Are there problems we should look out for there?
Just to go back, so something I didn't mention about part 1. When you present your S1 at the BLS office, who essentially now we know manage the application process on behalf of the consulate, so they collect the documents, then send it to the consulate then approve the visa, send it back to BLS. In 2022, the back end, they started requesting what they call the registration of the S1 with Social Security Services here. Okay, now that's slightly ridiculous, because when you make said registration, you don't have a residency card or a padron, which is required to register it, which I'm going to talk about now. So what happens is you register that, and then you get a piece of paper which says, oh, I've uploaded the documents and registered the S1 to the Social Security in your province. It's very important that it's in your province. We do this for our clients on their behalf, basically, so you don't have to do it. It's a bit clunky if you try to do it yourself. You'll then get proof of that registration, which you then take to your appointment. So you'll have your S1 and the proof of the registration of the S1, and that's what they consider the healthcare cover at the time of actually getting the visa. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens in some circumstances is before you get your visa or during the visa process, the Social Security this end will reject that application because it's incomplete. Bit ridiculous. So we'd get a notification. Well, either very similar to all processes here, which is called a requerimiento, so they require more documents because we know we haven't sent the right ones in, or they'll just close it down and say, no, sorry, this case is closed because they didn't send the right documents. This is quite normal because you won't have them. So anyway, going on to the next step is once you do have your visa in Spain, you need to have your visa registered and a Padron certificate to be able then to either go back to the Social Security and tell them, okay, here's the rest of the documents that you require, or go back to them, open your case again and ask them to complete it. Again, this is something that we do on behalf of our clients.
Any other problems or anything else to look out for there?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is, so there are, as we mentioned on the show before, there are areas where you can actually, for the first time registration of your TIE. Now, Jane sat next to me now, and I think she might throw a shoe at me for saying this, right? So, because we are live in the office today, right? See Jane on YouTube at all, but there are, if I whisper actually, there are areas where we don't need a Padron for the first registration all the time. Okay, even though we insist, right?
Did she hear you?
Get your, don't fish at me.
Good. There could be trouble.
There could be trouble. But obviously, if you're an S1 applicant and you have managed to go to one of these areas that don't need a Padron, okay, and you get your TIE registered, then obviously you can't register your S1 because you still don't have your Padron. So Jane doesn't throw anything at me. I'm going to say the most important thing you can get when you enter Spain before anything is your Padron certificate. And sometimes you'll find that the addresses on the S1s are different to where you finally end up living, especially in the case of people who don't have accommodation here, don't own a house, don't have a rental, whatever. So far with us, that hasn't been a problem because the Social Security will ignore the Spanish address that you use to apply for the S1 and always relate your application to your Padron address. That's not a problem. So a lot of people, that's a big question we get asked all the time, but the address on the S1 is going to be wrong. I'm like, don't worry. As of yet, must have registered about 200 now at least, or more. I would say that there's never been a problem when it's a different address.
Excellent. That's very good to know. What happens if you're a couple but you're not married? Are you still both covered?
Now that's a very good question. So if you're a couple and you're not married, the pensions authorities will actually give you still both an S1, but the problem comes when you come to Spain, because the Social Security want to see the relationship between the insured person and the person who is allowing the other person to get the health insurance here in Spain with the Social Security. So they'll always ask for a marriage certificate or civil partnership certificate or whatever that relationship is. So you could actually, in theory, get your visa using the S1, but then when you come here to Spain, not be able to register it, which is a problem because when you come to renew your visa, you evidently have to supply them with proof of registration of the S1.
Is there any way around that with forward planning?
Get married, that's one. Have a civil partnership, that's two. Or have private healthcare for the person who won't be able to register their S1 here in Spain.
And this is my final question. This is quite a short show, isn't it? Because it's although it might not be a simple process and it's got clinky bits to it, there's not a whole lot of other questions that need answering, I think. But let's go to, if you're an EU citizen, can you use the S1 as proof of healthcare when you register for residency, and how does that work?
You can do. So I think what I'm going to try and find, which I should have prepared for you. Do we have the retro certificate here anywhere I can grab? Jane's going to find me one now. So, because that'd be handy for you to see. Basically, if you're an EU citizen or an EU family member, you can use the S1 as well, but there isn't any pre-registration required. So EU citizens use the S1 in its physical form at the EU appointment, and then if you're an EU family member, like I think a couple of weeks ago we did that video, then when you make the application online, you have to submit a copy of the S1 proving that you are either a beneficiary of an S1 or you're actually the holder of the right for the S1. What that brings is questions surrounding, you've had a couple of cases like this, and so far so good. Don't forget that the EU applicant has to go directly to this down here. There's no sort of pre-qualification. It's the person behind the desk that qualifies you. But we've had cases where the non-EU citizen is the person who holds the right, and the EU citizen is the beneficiary, but you can't get the residency for the non-EU before you get the EU. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you have to go to the EU residency appointment with the S1, which shows you're a beneficiary of somebody who's not a resident.
Yeah.
Right. That very much comes down to, on the day when you go, your appointment specialist has to explain this to the guy behind the desk or the lady behind the desk who's assessing you, and make sure that they accept it. With us, so far so good. We've done 2 in Almeria, 1 here in Malaga, might be 2. Thank you. In that format, and it's been successful. See, I told you Jane assisted.
Yeah, she's real.
Yeah, she's real. That's the only glimpse you're ever going to get on YouTube. She won't come on a YouTube channel.
Just the side view with a hand and a piece of paper.
Yeah,
Jane's famous now.
That's it. Famous forever. So anyway, when you've registered your S1, don't forget it's not an automatic registration. So you don't just go, there you go, there's my documents, and the next day they send it out to you. No, there's a wait. And I'm just data protecting a couple of certificates here, which I'm going to show you quickly on the fly, as you do. So you have to be aware that there could be a period where you might not have access to healthcare as well. So that's something to be aware of. But so far, so good. Areas like Malaga and Alicante are coming out pretty well, pretty good. But that's not the end of the story. So when you've registered your S1, you will get a document that looks like this. Okay, this is your documento acreditativo de derecho a asistencia sanitaria, which basically is your document which accredits that you've got assistance to healthcare. Okay, once you go with this document, you need to take your padron and all your documents to the medical centre and register with the healthcare, and then they will give you a certificate, which then shows you're registered, and your card should come through the post to you.
Excellent.
So that's more or less it for the registration.
Brilliant. So is there anything else that we've missed out that would be useful for people to know?
Yeah, on renewal, we will also request, with our S1 applicants, we'll request this document. If you're a new client that's come on just for the renewal and you did your own S1 application, we would actually request this document from you, and it has a validity at the bottom there. Okay, so that validity actually has to be in place for the renewal. And if we are one of our clients and we're doing the renewal, then evidently we'll already have the proof that you've been registered. But it's always handy to give us your cards as well. We like to have the proof of you actually registered at a doctor, albeit, to be honest, immigration can check in with the Social Security to see if it's okay or not. But yeah, so renewals, you still have to prove every time that you continue to receive healthcare here in Spain.
Excellent. So, my dear watchers and listeners, have you enjoyed the show? Don't forget to gently caress that like button. You don't have to smash it. And subscribe and click on the bell if you haven't already, so that you'll be the first to know what's coming up each week on the live shows and the midweek videos. Before I tell you who's on next week's show, let me just remind you that if you have any questions or comments, put them in the YouTube comments just below the video, not on the random Facebook group that you got transferred to here from, because we want all of our watchers to benefit from the answers, and I'm sure you do too. And it's free. It's yet another win-win-win with a cherry on top. So let's all say a huge thank you to Chris. Give him a massive virtual hug and a kiss. And we'll see him again in 2 weeks' time, when we'll be helping more people with their Spanish dream. So we'll see you then, Chris. Bye for now. So who do I have on the show next week? Well, every now and then on YouTooSpain, we give you a little break from the bureaucracy and bring you a guest who has an amazing story to tell about life in Spain for your delectation and enjoyment. And I'm very pleased to say that next week it's Chris's wife Lara, because she's got more than one story to tell. And not only that, she's published them. So you're going to hear all about her life and her adventure into becoming an author, her inspirations, and also how to publish your own books. How exciting is that? I really can't wait. It's going to be a pre-recorded show again, but we'll be back live with Chris the following week. And don't forget, you can ask questions at any time in advance on our Facebook page and the Facebook group, or under any of the videos. Feel free to chat away and share your experiences of moving to Spain and living here. So thanks so much to all of you for joining us, leaving comments and stroking the like button and supporting us with donations and memberships. It's so very much appreciated. I'll see you either on the midweek video or live on Saturday mornings at our regular time of 9 o'clock in the morning if you're in the UK or Ireland or Portugal or the Channel Islands, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe. That's all for this week. Someone pass around the S1 cookies. Peace and love, peas and fluff. And here's one final message from all of the voices in my head at YouTooSpain. See you soon. Wave goodbye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love, peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.